Hello, I want to welcome you to CS362 at Colorado Technical University. First thing I'd like to talk to you about is for this course to work correctly, you need to download and install Microsoft SQL Server 2012. So you're going to go to this particular web address here, and once you get to that screen, you're then going to want to download SQL Server 2012. When you click that particular download link, you're going to select what type of system you have, whether you have a 32-bit system or a 64-bit system. And I've got a 64-bit system, so I'm just going to download the US version and hit download 64-bit. So once this download completes, we'll install the download manager, and it's working on here. We tell it where we would like the download to go to, and here it's actually downloading the particular file. So this is going to take a little while to get that down because it's pretty big. As you can see, it's 1.7 gigs. So we'll stop back as soon as this is completed. Okay, now that we've downloaded our file, as you can see, they're quite big, 1.78 gigs and 600 megs. Let's actually see what's actually out here. So we have the core, the installation box, and the language box. And let's see, the links are stored in my download area. So let's exit this area. Here's my local downloads. And what we want to install here is SQL. So let's go ahead and run that install. Okay, and what it has done is it extracted everything into a folder, and then inside this folder, this is what we're going to use to install on our machine. So we're going to start off by running the setup program. And what it's doing in this particular case, it's going to evaluate your hardware system, security, a whole series of different questions here that's got to go through and review. Then we'll actually create a standalone installation for this particular class. And what it's doing is going out and checking your system and making sure that all of these functions will properly work on your particular computer. And now it'll actually begin the installation. Now we're using an evaluation version. Okay. You don't want to use the Express edition. You're better off using the evaluation edition. That way it'll get you to all the features that are out there. And we'll accept the license terms. And it's okay to send any usage data that's not proprietary data. It just tells us that if there's any errors during the installs and stuff like that, it automatically gets sent to Microsoft. Now it's giving me a warning on my Windows firewall, and that's only because there's some specific things that I have enabled on my particular machine which could cause a problem. So there's a special link here that you can go to when this particular happens. You might have to open up sections of your Windows firewall in order for this to work correctly. And again, we're just using feature install. We're not using it for SharePoint at all. And the feature install gives us the database engine, the reporting, integrated services, and so forth. So we really don't need all of the additional stuff required for SharePoint. And this allows us to specifically install specific features inside of here. We definitely want the database engine We don't need the replicator. We do want to have the two data services modules for full text search, because that'll be some of the experimental things that we're going to do. We're not interested in the reporting services, the data quality client. We're not interested. We are interested in using some of the SQL data tools though, and then the client tech connectivity tools, which are things like ODBC, so that you can transfer information from Access into SQL Server. The integration services is like a runtime for transferring data between different locations, which we want to use that. And let's see here, management tools. We definitely want the management tool complete package, because this will allow us to use the management studio, and that's what we're interested in using for this particular package. And let's see here, the SQL connectivity SDK, which is really good. That's the ODBC. We definitely want that, so we will connect to next. And again, every step of the phase, you analyze your system and make sure that you have everything properly installed. If not, there will be statuses over here on the left and right hand side where you might have to go to Microsoft and update on your machine and make sure all the updates are properly installed on your computer before you begin this install. And we're just going to use the default instance, which is SQL Server, and we'll tell it to put everything on the C drive. In my case, because of my data management, I'm going to put everything on the D drive. Now this is telling me what's going to be going in each location. There's going to be 2 meg that's required on the C drive, and then the rest of the stuff is going to go over onto the D drive. Now here is the SQL account, or the server administration account that it's going to use. Again, we're going to use all the defaults here for that. And what you're best off to use is a mix mode. And under the mix mode, it'll allow you to use the Windows authentication or SQL authentication, or what they call the system administrator account. And you just put in a basic password for that you'll remember. And you can also add the current user, or you can turn around and for the Windows authentication mode, it'll automatically do it that way. Or if SA account here, it'll use the password from these 2 locations. And if there are any error reports, let's go ahead and send them off to Microsoft. And again, it's tested all phases here, and it's making sure that everything is ready to install. And this is the summary in reference to what it's physically going to do. And let it install. And this will typically take anywhere between 5 and 10 minutes, depending on how fast your machine is. But this will get everything that we need over to your machine required for the class. And keep in mind, we don't go over the SQL installation in the class. This SQL Server is required for the class, but this little session is to show you how to do this and get this installed on your computer. Okay, and you see it just kind of buzzed through here real fast towards the end. Now our install is completed. Okay, now that we have completed the install, if we take a look at the different applications that it is installed, here's the SQL Server 2012, and here's all the different packages that we'll be using. The primary one will be this SQL Server Management Studio. And we'll just connect to the local database that's on my particular machine. Okay. And there's different instances. We can do all sorts of different things, but we just want to talk to the database engine for right now. And if I scroll this down, get this to fit on the screen nicely. Here we have the different databases that that are part of the master system. So our local security that we're dealing with, and here's our SA account that we created and the particular user for this machine, so you make sure all the security is working. And then from this particular point we can actually grab a particular database and say new database, CTU for the database name. That's on our general tab, and then we have different file options that we can set up, but we're just going to use all the defaults for each one of these for right at the moment. And then this is where the database is actually stored. So right now everything is on the D drive, and I'm just going to change this location so it's kind of easier to find it. Back up, and we'll put it under the CTU folder, and we'll put the log file in the same location. So now we have everything in the proper area, and we'll hit OK. Now we've created our simple CTU database, and now we can begin to create our new tables and start from there. So if you want to experiment for the first one, we can say create new table, call it name, we'll call it student ID, and because this is my ID, we make our primary big int and we don't allow nulls, and this is a identity column, okay, which is our student ID. And let's see if I slide this up here. There's some other features that we can actually take a look, and because this is identity column, we want to make sure that says yes, so that it starts at 1 and then increments by 1. And then we'll put in our first name. Oops. And we'll go over these different types of character sets and why you would use these different types of character sets. But for right now, we'll do an n varchar, and we'll say 50, and we don't want to allow nulls. And put in our last name, and that is also an n varchar. And then once we create that particular file, we'll then in turn save it. We'll call this students. Now we have our particular student table. So if I go over here, notice that nothing shows under my table, so I have to refresh this. So I right click and say refresh, and here's my DBO student. The columns or fields that I started to create for this particular class. And we'll go through this in a lot more detail later, but this should get you started and running on your machine. So to reiterate, you need to install the SQL Server package. We do not go over the installation inside the class. This is prerequisite that you have this installed before the class starts. And if you have any questions of this, most of the time this is very self-explanatory on installation, but again, this is required for the class, for the CS362 class. We went to this particular website here, and we clicked the download SQL Server 2012, and we selected whatever operating system that I was using, whether it's a 32-bit operating system or a 64-bit operating system. So again, because these files are so large to download, it will take some time, so have a little patience when you go to do this. But the evaluation version gives you a 90-day period to do this, so that'll give you plenty enough time to do this for the class. So I'd like to welcome you to the CS362 SQL Data Management class. Good luck with the install. We look forward to seeing your first session.